Question number 7.
That was a knockout answer.
Tēnā koe e te mana whakawā. To the Minister for Climate Change Issues, what reports has he received on New Zealand's climate change initiatives, particularly the ETS and the Global Alliance for Research into Cutting Agricultural Emissions, and how have these influenced New Zealand's role in the international negotiations of a new climate change deal post-Kyoto?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the reports indicate a high level of respect for the progress New Zealand has been able to make on climate change, in sensibly implementing a moderate emissions trading scheme and in launching the Global Research Alliance on Agricultural Greenhouse Gases. The International Climate Change Negotiations Minister Tim Grosser chaired discussions in Mexico City on how countries' pledges to reduce emissions can work best, and consequently he has been invited to the Major Economies Forum this week in Washington. This reflects the international respect for Tim's work as both a negotiator as well as his work in climate change, and is also New Zealand's proactive role around the issue of climate change. I would also note this year New Zealand's former climate change ambassador Adrian Macy was elected to a key role in the post-Kyoto negotiations, again reinforcing the constructive role New Zealand is playing in these difficult negotiations.
Hekia Parata.
Supplementary question. Has the Minister seen the UMR published yesterday on public attitudes to climate change and the emissions trading scheme, and what conclusions does he draw from this report?
Mr. Speaker, yes, I have seen the report, and it's very encouraging because it reinforces the approach the government is taking. A very clear majority of people in New Zealand want to reduce our emissions, but they're also cognisant of the costs as consumers and impacts on jobs. On the ETS, a minority of 23% want the scheme scrapped altogether, whereas a similar number of 25% want us to go harder and be more demanding in reducing emissions. It's also interesting to note that over the last year there's been an increase in the proportion, now up to 52%, of the public who back the need to support for businesses that are trade exposed. The poll indicated a very polarised position on the inclusion of agriculture in the ETS, with 48% being opposed and 45% support. This reinforces the cautious position the government has taken on the inclusion of agriculture into the ETS.
Hekia Parata.
Supplementary to the Minister, what reports has the Minister seen on how the emissions trading scheme is helping New Zealand reduce emissions?
Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
There are two areas where the ETS is having a very positive impact. The first is in respect of forestry. In the years 2005 to 2008, we had the highest level of deforestation since records began in the 1930s. This has been reversed, with plantings now exceeding felling in both 2008 and the projected figures for 2009. I'm also encouraged by reports from nurseries that the forward orders for 2011 are the most positive for more than a decade. The second positive result is the switch of investment in electricity generation. Over the last decade, over 60% of new generation has been thermal, and that's resulted in a decline in the proportion of our power that is renewable. I'm further encouraged by the fact that over 80% of new resource consents for electricity generation are now for renewable power, which is exactly where New Zealand needs to head.
John Biscowen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister for Climate Change, can he confirm that his ETS will cost the good people of Mana $20 million over the next 3 years? And if he doesn't think it's $20 million, what does he think it is?
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the costs for the people of Mana would be substantially more if we put our head in the sand and pretended there wasn't an issue around climate change. I'd also note that there is a number of significant forestry areas in the area of Mana, and our very capable candidate, Hekia Parata, has discussed with me the encouragement that's going on in forestry, and seeing new trees being planted in that electorate is something that I think most members of this Parliament would welcome.
Question number 8, the Honourable Darren Hughes.